Origins of Invisible Woman. Susan Storm is a founding member of the Fantastic Four and later the Future Foundation. She is able to create invisible force fields of any shape she conceives and able to turn herself and anything she's in contact with invisible. Sue is the wife of Reed Richards and the mother of their children, Franklin and Valeria. Sue Storm and her younger brother Johnny had a pretty normal and happy childhood until their mother died in a car accident. Their father, Dr. Franklin Storm, who was a famous and talented surgeon, could not save her life. Unfortunately, Franklin was unable to cope with the loss. As a result, he became an alcoholic and a gambler. He got into a scuffle with a loan shark and accidentally killed him, and was later charged with murder, sending him to jail. Sue visited him in jail, but her father asked her not to visit anymore and to tell Johnny that he was dead. He felt ashamed of his actions and believed he was not worthy of his children. At this point, Sue was forced to become both mother and sister to Johnny. Caring for her brother throughout most their childhood caused Sue to mature far earlier than most children her age. Eventually, the Storm siblings moved in with their aunt, who owned a boarding house, and it was there she met the man who would shape her life. Sue met and fell for Reed Richards, a tenant of her aunt's boarding house. Richards was a genius and a brilliant scientist. He was attending Columbia University at the time. Many years passed before Sue and Reed finally crossed paths again. In an attempt to become an actress, young Susan went to California to pursue acting and met up with Reed once again. Reed was taken by the woman Susan had become, and shortly afterward they began dating. Around this time, Reed was trying to accomplish his lifelong dream of building a spaceship, which he funded with his own money along with government grants. The government threatened to cut off funding as it was tiring of what they considered to be Reed's overly fastidious preparations. Desperate to try out the ship, Reed took his best friend and test pilot Ben Grimm, Sue, and Johnny on an unauthorized trip into outer space. They had all helped in the design, but the ship did not have adequate shielding and they were bombarded by cosmic rays. The ship was forced back into Earth's atmosphere and crash-landed. The four discovered that the cosmic rays had mutated them and given them superhuman abilities. They decided to use their powers to fight evil and became the Fantastic Four. Their first adventure was against the Mole Man and his monster allies. In the Superhuman Civil War, Reed supported the Superhuman Registration Act. Sue's views differed from Reed's, but she was willing to stand by her husband. However, Johnny and Sue are attacked when a rioting crowd outside a nightclub are furious that Johnny's superhero status gives him easy access to the club and superiority over normal humans. The attack leaves Johnny in a coma. During one of the longer and most meaningful battles in the Civil War, against Captain America's Secret Avengers, Sue as well as the other heroes see a clone of Thor join the battle. This clone Thor, Ragnarok, kills Bill Foster and was ready to make quick work of the other heroes. Susan realized how deadly and corrupted the pro-registration side had become. Wanting to save her friends, Sue placed herself in between Ragnarok and the Secret Avengers while he performed one of his devastating lightning attacks, saving the life of Captain America and the other heroes. She tells them all to leave. Reed tries desperately to explain to her that he had nothing to do with Ragnarok, but Sue tells him not to speak and leaves. Shortly afterward, Johnny is released from the hospital and both he and Sue go to join the Secret Avengers. Before leaving, she leaves Reed a note to explain her actions and begs him to spend time with his children whom he's neglected since the start of the struggle. Towards the end of the Civil War, in the climactic battle, Sue decides to protect the innocent civilians while the other heroes fight. Taskmaster, one of the criminals hired by the pro-registrants to bring in the resistance, notices Sue and was ready to shoot her when Reed intervened and took a bullet for his wife. In anger and disgust, Sue manipulates her field into an offensive weapon and flattens the Taskmaster for harming her husband. Later on, Sue accepts amnesty and helps in the reconstruction of the New York street where the battle took place. After receiving a letter from Reed, she returns home. At this time both Sue and Reed decide to pick up the pieces of their marriage. They take a break from the Fantastic Four. Storm fills in for Sue with her husband King T'Challa Black Panther taking over from Reed. After a future version of Franklin returns to the present on Franklin's birthday and warns the Fantastic Four about an upcoming War of Four Cities, the team discover 4 lost civilizations. One of these is a lost realm of old Atlantis in Lake Vostok under Antarctica. The people of this city appoint Sue as their ambassador, but when Sue returns with Namor to negotiate with them, things turn bad and Namor kills their king Aluhar, leaving Sue to assume control as their regent. After Johnny dies while sealing off the negative zone from the inside, the team reforms as the Future Foundation, including the assembled individuals who now live at the Baxter Building. Sue welcomes Spider-Man as he comes to join the team. She explains the design of the new uniform to him, saying that the old one seemed wrong after losing Johnny and the black and white colors reflect the current situation in the world. After defeating Fin Fang Foom, the team returns to the Baxter Building. That night, a swarm of creatures from a pocket dimension dreamed up by Franklin Richards attacks NYC. The swarm requires the attention of every available hero in the city. After these events, the Fantastic Four are taken to court to answer for the damage they've done to the city and its inhabitants over the years. Franklin and the other children of the Future Foundation are taken from Susan and Reed, who are deemed unfit to raise and provide for them. The Baxter Building is locked up, and Susan and Reed have no home left. Ben is taken into custody, and Johnny loses his powers and his record deal. In a state of emotional frustration, Susan lashes out at the Avengers, who are preventing their entrance into the Baxter Building. She is able to quickly and effectively take out the Avengers on her own, including heavy hitters, such as the Hulk and Thor. Jim Hammond arrives and talks Sue down. The Avengers do not retaliate, saying that they understand her situation. Sue and Reed leave and travel to Eden to make the world a better place. While Reed is busy with work, Susan sneaks into Camp Hammond and steals one of the Fantastic Four's jets back. Sue flies the jet to Latveria where she seeks to retrieve her daughter, Valeria Richards. Valeria had previously decided to leave her parents and seek the company of her godfather, Uncle Victor von Doom, monarch of Latveria. Valeria and Doom were working together to make the world a better place. Her positive influence on Doom is significant. Sue explains that she's lost nearly everything that she held dear to her, and wants to bring Valeria back. Valeria comforts her mother, saying she is needed more in Latveria because of the importance of her work. Sue refuses to take no for an answer, and her emotions as a mother seeking to protect her child take over. In a stunning display of power, Sue defeats and humiliates Doom and his Latverian forces. She uses her powers in unique ways to slip particles of her shield into Doom's armor, and then removes it. One woman took on an entire nation, and won. But Valeria, now scared of her mother, declares that it must be Malice, once again, in possession of Sue's body. Susan, looking at all the damage she's caused, decides to leave Latveria, and her daughter. Powers and abilities. Sue can now generate and control a form of energy from hyperspace. She bends light waves away from her which make her invisible. She also wears a special suit which has unstable molecules. This special suit allows her clothes to become invisible with her as well. Soon after, she was able to render other objects invisible. By rendering objects invisible, she uses her imagination rather than visuals. For example, she can make pipes in a building invisible without actually seeing them. With this, she could also disrupt the energy waves making someone else invisible. She could also make invisible objects and use them as projectiles, something small being much like a bullet and something large like a battering ram. With this, she could make a temporary ladder or something which she could use to reach higher places. She also has the ability to form force fields around her and other people. She can control the texture of these force fields, making them as tough as she wants or as soft. She can also fly or levitate by pushing her energy through air molecules. Can also assimilate telekinesis, which developed to the point that she destroyed a piece of a celestial's armor. Sue's powers have grown and she's learned to use them in new and creative ways. With her invisibility she can render all of herself, or any part of herself, invisible. Render others and other objects invisible. Make walls, the floor, or the ceiling, invisible so she can see through them. Sense other things that are invisible and make them visible. Partially disguise her clothing to modify her appearance, notably hiding her costume when posing as a civilian. With her force fields she can create strong shields. Create ladders, bridges, platforms, elevators, and other things to get places. Create a board or saucer to levitate herself or others. Use her force fields to move things like telekinesis. Create weapons, i.e. a sword. Create a projectile weapon. Create a battering ram to bust open doors, etc. Create something soft to catch someone like a giant glove or mattress. Make things explode by creating a shield inside of it, then expanding it. Suffocate someone by putting them in a shield and not letting air in. Create an air bubble. She can go places without air and not let air out. She has had some training in hand-to-hand combat, and is a capable unarmed combatant. Her earliest appearances had her ability as only being able to become invisible, but as a more scientific approach was taken to explain her powers, it was decided to expand them to include force fields. She uses force fields to bend the light around her. Thus, although she was a relatively weak character to begin with, she has become one of the more powerful.